Let me tell you something I discovered this week.
Okay.
Talking to a startup.
Yep.
That shocked me, but you might know this.
As much as I got shocked by Fanatics $43 billion valuation.
More legitimately than you got shocked by that. But you might know this. So obviously, you know that the big issue that apps have with Apple that everyone knows about is the tax, as you would call it, right? And so that's the epic battle and whatever it is. But there is this other factor that goes on with Apple that I wonder if you know this, that I was totally shocked to learn. So when you go and sell an app through the App Store and you get paid for the app, and let's say you get paid $10. I'll just use an easy number.
This is after the toll.
Before. So Apple will take their $3 and so you've got $7. And let's say you get paid for that $7 on the 2nd of June. The customer buys it and pays.
I know where this is going.
Do you know when Apple will give you that money?
I'm assuming it's not that soon. Otherwise, you would be bringing it up.
So they will give you that money somewhere. So you won't get that money. Anything that you get paid in June, I think you'll get paid at the beginning of September.
90-day terms.
It might be 60 days, but like what they do is they roll up a whole month.
Yeah.
And I think they pay you at the beginning of 2 months later or at the end of the next month.
Yeah.
And so what you have is all of these fast-growing apps that have got all of this money that has been paid to them that is being held by Apple effectively as an interest-free loan on their balance sheet.
Free working capital for them.
All of them, so maybe some apps have special terms with Apple, but I can tell you that small, very fast-growing apps, they just have to figure out ways to fund their working capital while Apple is holding money that they owe to them.
Actually, but like, you know my thoughts on Apple.
How can that be the case?
But I don't know how this even is good for Apple because all they're doing is crippling apps that can make Apple more money. So it just seems counterintuitive to be wielding such power so flippantly against the interests of your own business.
Apple's view is that, because I agree with you, because the money, if they would pay out the money, then that money could just be used to run marketing, right? If you've got positive...
Pay Apple for marketing.
So if you've got this positive, as you would know this term, return on ad spend, ROAS, which I hate. But
why do you hate it?
Well, I don't
mind...
The
concept of the term?
The concept. I don't hate it in software because you've got the gross margin is close to 100%. But if you're running a retail business and you use return on ad spend, what you're saying is how much revenue do I get as a multiple of my ad spend? And the problem is you don't get to keep that revenue. You've got all of these other costs.
Well, you just do ROAS target accordingly. You need an ad target
to gross profit.
Or just say...
No, I wouldn't use that term. I think the term is misleading.
Everybody's got a ROAS target. If you've got a software business, you have a ROAS target of 1 or 2. But if you've got a business like ours, you need a ROAS target of 8 or 9. So just adjust.
I would rather just use it as I'd just rather not use that term. I would rather in retail use it as a return on gross profit or something like that. But in apps, I don't mind return on ad spend because your incremental cost is basically zero, right? So you're keeping all of the subscription revenue that comes in. And so I know that what Apple's argument for this is, it's that if customers ask for a refund, they have the money there and they can refund it. They don't have to go and chase it back from the app.
What can you ask for? Like,
there are some things where you can say, I clicked it by accident. Or
presumably that refund only goes for like a month max.
Yeah, no, so that's the argument, right? They don't need to hold it for that long. And by the way, a rapidly growing app, like, you know what their refund rate is approximately, and you can keep it from the next month's payment. And so I think... frankly, it is totally outrageous that this is going on. And this is one of those things that you wouldn't realize unless you were in that world, because we all know the clip is pretty well known, the tax. But this delay in getting paid, it's like you're providing credit card terms to Apple. Yeah. So I was astonished to learn about that. Astonished.
Speaking of tech companies gouging and misusing market power, we've talked about Google before. So Google, I think, is probably worse than Apple. I mean, they own both sides of the advertising marketplace. So they control how much you pay, all that kind of stuff. I'm not sure if you've seen this, but we've talked about how a lot of small businesses, medium businesses, use credit cards to pay for Google. They get points, they get credit terms. So it's a win-win. They can spend more on Google. Google are now unilaterally basically not allowing anyone, unless you're a really tiny marketer, not allowing anyone to use credit cards anymore. This is one of the most grotesque displays of market power I've ever seen. And they're not saying, which I have no huge issue with Google said, we incur a cost of 70 bips. We're going to charge you 70 bips for a credit card. They've said, no, you can't use credit cards. Effectively, so it's a credit term thing. We want the money. Well, it's not even a credit. They get the money.
Is this just for you or for everyone?
Everyone. US, UK.
I haven't heard this before.
You will be hearing it.
Right.
It's the most you've heard my talk about it. Google
it's bad for frequent flyer points because like the whole world is traveling on frequent flyer points based on Google spend.
It's bad. Well, it's bad for that. But you cannot. That's one element. But a lot of business, especially small, like medium business, use your credit cards for cash flow.
Yeah.
And Google's saying you can't.
So what does it mean? You have to.
This is exactly what Apple do.
What do you do? Put a bank account.
You got to use pay by invoice, pay by transfer.
But how? And you have to prepay.
I'm not sure if you prepay or postpay.
Well, but if they give you, let's say they gave you 30-day terms, because my recollection, it's been a long time since I've paid anything for Google on terms. Yeah. But my recollection is that you basically got 30 days from the end of that month's spend.
There's been a lot of chatter on the Reddits and those things about how small medium businesses are being hurt by this from a cash flow perspective. So I'm not sure what their current terms are, but it's more the fact that
but it wouldn't even be good for Google because when you think about it, so let's say like whatever percentage fee Google is being charged will be tiny.
Oh, it's like 70 bips.
And so if you think about them giving 30-day terms, it's not going to be, the cost of capital for that is not going to be very different to paying that 70 bips and getting the money immediately.
There's going to be some people who advertise less or not at all because they don't. But what it does show is just the incredible market. Where is the ACCC and the FT? They stop these stupid mergers that aren't going to be relevant to anyone. This is something that impacts thousands of businesses, millions of businesses.
How would you impose this? Like you can't. How do you force a company to take a particular payment type?
Are there many businesses that don't take credit cards, especially online? I don't think there are really any that don't
I know, but it would be their choice not to take credit card. Like they could say, we're not taking credit cards, we're only taking direct transfers.
I simply think that if you're a new business and you say, I'm starting this business and I just want to take credit, it's too hard for me to organise or I can't organise a merchant facility. There's plenty of reasons why you can't. This is a business that has taken credit cards for 15, 20 years, to be able to tell millions of businesses, you know what, we don't want to take credit cards anymore.
I know, but
it's just such a grotesque display of market power.
All right, but the counter argument to this.
Can I just say, if we turned off credit cards, we go out of business.
Right, well, that's the counter argument. The counter argument is to say, if Google doesn't want to take credit cards, what's your argument that says they have to? Oh, it's not good for their customers. That's your argument, right? Yeah. And then the market regulator might say, then the customers can go elsewhere. Your argument is there is nowhere else to go.
They own the market.
Okay. That's I kind of gotten to the end point of this discussion. Yeah, I think that's the difference. The difference is there is no competitive tension in this market around search.
Literally zero. Like, and you say, I think that's Bing or whatnot.
I think it's 5 to 10% Bing.
I know, but you say that, yes, they have 5, but you can't shift your spend to Bing. Like, I'd love to shift my spend to Bing, but you can't.
Well, every business of mine, I think, is maxing out its ability to spend on Bing.
And, and so where is the ACCC when there's a company that dominates the market like Google and can just do whatever they want, whenever they want? Like,
well, they haven't done it yet. So
Gina, I think's been a good ACCC chair. I'd love to see her go and just say, hold on, Google, we're going to actually and make some money for Australia. It's fine Google $10 billion for this. Like, they're going to have to pay it and they can't not operate in Australia. Here's a chance to make some money, ACCC.
So what would be interesting, because you say it's the ACCC, but the easiest way to do things in a democracy is to legislate.
Yep.
That's the easiest way.
Yep.
And so what would be interesting is if the government turned around and said, we're going to make these list of rules for companies that we deem to have outsized power in their market. We don't have to call them monopolies, outsized power in their market. Yep. And these rules are, you have to take these payments, you can't charge more than this, you have to remit funds in this amount of time. And all we're going to do then is let a regulator decide which names of companies are on that list, and then it's legislated, not regulated. That would be more simpler and more powerful.
Well, the government did that. Remember that there was that term, like if you're a big business, you got to pay in 6. There is. So they've sort of
I'm not super familiar with that. But
neither am I. But they've done it to some. Like, I think I'm not sure how well it's enforced.
By the way, if it is paying in 60 days. That's actually ridiculous. Like, that's such a long time, payment terms.
I don't know the details of that, but they did enforce some sort of rules around. And you've got government bodies who stuff around small business.
Absolutely. Government is unbelievably slow at paying.
Yeah.
Yep. I agree with
you.
So
ironically, government trying to fix themselves up. Yeah. But like, I think the point is, like, Google is this, of all the big, and we're seeing big tech being gouging. Like, Amazon's pretty bad, Apple's pretty bad, but Google is in a league of their own in terms of market power, in terms of controlling. So we talk about Apple having the toll and what you talked about before.
And it's hard to swap from, if you're on iOS, if you've got iPhones, I mean, like, the argument that says that's not a monopoly is that you could buy an Android phone, but realistically, like, that is much easier said than done.
But it's much easier to switch from Apple to Android than from Google to anything.
That's
like, you
true.
can't switch from Google to anything. Like, you have to be on
So Google's counter argument to that would be, we don't just compete with search, we compete with all performance spend across social, and TikTok is growing much faster than we are, and then there's also Meta. Like, that would be their counter argument.
That's a ridiculous argument, and like it just doesn't hold
to
because
you,
they own
but
so much of the market. They own so much of the digital spend market.
so it's a ridiculous argument to you because you're in the world, right? You're in this world, but the people making these laws and decisions are not in this world day to day, and so that has to be explained to them. And I'm telling you, like, the argument I just gave you, in my view, to an external third party would be a compelling argument that says the market is not just search, it's performance spend online. And we are
I agree.
50% of performance spend. They're probably less than 50%. If you put Meta, TikTok, they're less than 50%.
Oh, no, I think they're more. Well, we can get some market data on that, but I think more.